In this video, I'm going to be discussing deducting meals as a business expense. So many business owners get this wrong, and I just want to clear up some things by answering a few questions like what meals are not deductible at all, 50% deductible, and 100% deductible. What do you need to do for record keeping? What not to do when deducting meals. I'm going to provide you some helpful hints and also answers to the question as to why does the IRS even give you a deduction for meals, since everyone kind of needs to eat anyway, right? So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Navi Miraj. I am a CPA who specifically helps real estate professionals. That's you, the real estate agent, realtor, or broker even. But this video is talking about the meals deduction and is going to cover all small businesses. But typically I create videos or I do consulting with my clients to help them save thousands of dollars in taxes. So if you've subscribed to the channel or you've watched the other videos, when I was talking about tax planning and the importance of tax planning versus tax prep, I talked about meals in the maximizing deduction sort of section of tax planning. And so this is sort of a series of videos that I'm putting out. So if you haven't subscribed, you might want to do that now so you don't miss out any of those other videos. So let's talk about the substantiation behind this deduction anyway, right? Why would the IRS even want to give us a deduction about business meals, right? So let's think about it like this, because I think if you think about it like this, you really won't have any trouble in understanding, well, should I deduct this business meal or not, right? So everyone has to eat, so why deduct anything? So if you have this mindset, or I should say, if you have the mindset that this conversation is taking place during a meal and it's going to help my business grow revenue or perhaps reduce expenses, and what will then happen is I will have more profit in my business, and that's more profit that the IRS will be able to tax, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, it kind of makes sense as to why the IRS even is willing to give you this meals deduction, all right? So let's talk about deductibility for a second. Again, I mentioned that there are some meals that are not deductible at all, 50% and then 100% deductible. So meals that aren't deductible at all is you having a meal by yourself when you're not traveling for business, right? So if you're just busy throughout the day and you need to grab lunch or grab a meal, that's not something you can pull out the business credit card for and swipe it. So that meal would be not deductible at all. The next grouping is 50% deductible. And so most business meals fall under this category, right? So this would be having a business conversation with an employee, a vendor, a client, a prospect, a contractor, any conversation that you have that's business related, and then sort of there happens to be a meal taking place during that conversation. So that's 50% deductible. 100% deductible comes into play when you're having a meal for all your employees. So this is probably, you have quite a few employees and you're having this meal as like a social activity. So this could be a holiday party, for example, or a summer picnic, for example. All the employees are getting treated to a meal, and therefore you can deduct 100% of that meal. For my realtor clients watching, meals that you purchase for an open house, or perhaps wine and cheese that you have for an open house, those are 100% deductible. But what you need to be careful of is in your accounting software or however you keep track of that, you shouldn't throw that into the category of meals, or you should have maybe two categories for meals, one that says 100% and one that says 50%, because your accountant typically is just going to see meals and just chop that number in half, and you're not going to get the full deduction for it, right? Let's talk about record keeping next. So this is really simple, but people overcomplicate it. After you have that business meal and you take care of the bill, on your receipt, just write the name, what the business discussion was about that you had, and take a picture of that receipt. That's going to accomplish quite a few things. Obviously, you're going to have the name and the business discussion summary on there, but also you'll have the date on there. You'll have the vendor that you had the meal at, and the amount will also be there as well. So here's what not to do, okay? What not to do is not to be lavish or extravagant with your meal. So you can't go out there and have a $200 meal and expect the IRS to deduct $100 of that. That's just not going to fly, right? You need to be reasonable with some of this stuff. Also, you as the taxpayer or one of your employees needs to be present at the meal. So you can't tell a client, oh yeah, order what you want at this restaurant, I'm going to take care of the bill and deduct that as meal expense. That's not going to work. I hinted at this earlier, but you don't deduct meals by yourself unless you're traveling for business, specifically like out of town, right? So those meals that you deduct or that you have while you're out of town on business are 100% deductible, and those are allowed. But you can't, again, go through the Starbucks drive-through or whatever, grab a coffee and deduct that as meals expense. So here are some helpful hints that I'm going to give you about the meals deduction. You can deduct meals with employees, and those employees include your spouse. The thing is, again, you got to be reasonable with this, and your spouse should be on payroll. They should be actually working in the business, and you shouldn't take advantage of this. This shouldn't be every lunch because your spouse happens to be on payroll gets deducted, right? This should be an occasional thing. You can't have, date night, not talk about business at all, and then swipe the business credit card. Taxes and tips are part of the meal expense and are part of that 50% deductible bill. So I'm saying the taxes on that meal and the tip that you leave, the gratuity that you leave, is also part of that meal expense, and that total bill is 50% deductible. You can use this deduction even when you split the bill. So if you're out with a vendor and your vendor, it's a good relationship that you have, they pay for their half, you pay for your half, or what have you, that the amount that's billed to you is still 50% deductible. Don't think, oh, you split the meal in half and you're really only paying for your portion, that it's not deductible. You can still deduct that. A quick note I want to say, a couple years back, everyone used to talk about meals and entertainment together. It was like, hey, what you couldn't say entertainment without saying meals, and vice versa. Well, entertainment is no longer deductible. That happened a couple years with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. But meals separately invoiced would be. Let me give you an example of that. The common example is going to a sporting event, right? So you paid for the tickets for a client or prospect or whatever. You're there with them. You go to the event, and then you want to go ahead and purchase food and beverages and what have you. Well, if you're invoiced separately for those meals and beverages, or if on the receipt or whatever there's a separate line item for meals and beverages, then you can deduct the meals and beverage portion, but not the entertainment portion of that invoice. All right. So I think that about sums it up. So hopefully that cleared some things up for you. Like all of my videos, I just want to make you aware of sort of the big picture with some of these things. It's advisable that you either consult with me or your tax professional. If you're watching this on YouTube or on my website, which is navimirajcpa.com, all that information is linked in the description below, and you can get a hold of me via any of those methods. If you got value out of this video, please do subscribe, because in the next videos, I plan to discuss travel as a business deduction, and also hiring children. Yes, you heard me right, hiring children as a strategy that can save you thousands of dollars in taxes. So with that said, I just want to say I appreciate all the comments and feedback. If you're not leaving comments, please do, because I want to know about what questions you have, what other topics you want to see discussed, and that's going to allow me to create more valuable content for you. So with that said, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.